What's up, everybody? I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm David.
And we're doing a little Brograph Breakdown tonight with David Ariew on his latest piece. He likes to do music videos with the word walk in them.
That's true.
Wow.
So,
This is his ice space one.
Space baby.
Ice.
Ice baby.
Yeah, there you go.
You also did a new reel, which I figured we would play first.
Oh,
yes.
First,
if
cool,
you want to do that. So, all right.
You want me to
I'm
this isn't an audio
actually,
one. This is like all visual, huh?
I'm gonna play it actually, if this works. I've got it queued up, and so I'm gonna start it playing, and y'all just have to be quiet so everybody can hear the beautiful music.
Cool. Roll that beautiful
And
bean footage.
hopefully it plays.
Hey, Billy's
All
here.
right, sweet.
Hey, Billy Chitkin. What's up, man? Yeah,
So we're
just
going to talk
watching
about
We're
we're trying to
the
watch
reel.
the reel. But see, this is what I'm saying. Once we get all this other stuff streamlined, everything's gonna play. It's because like it's trying to do so much, it can't even play your reel. But
Yeah.
let me open your music video, and we're gonna watch that the best that we can right now. This is what you're gonna be breaking down.
Even in the dead of night, in the colder day, in the burning light, in the darkest way, I'll walk with you. Even in the light of dawn, in the lonely hour, with the broken heart, when your mind is gone, I'll walk with you. I'll fall with you, I'll break with you, I'll change for you. It's hard to do. I'll hurt with you, I'll lie with you, get drunk on you. I want the truth. Some kind of magic, baby, we have it. Whatever happens, I will walk with you. Some kind of magic, baby, we have it. Whatever happens, I will walk with you. I will walk with you. I will walk with you. we fall apart, when you fall behind, when they break your heart, I'll walk with you. Even in the deepest blue, in the blackest black, when you're far away and you can't look back, I'll stand by you. I'll run with you, become with you, be one with you the whole way through. I'll fight for you, do right by you, this life with you, it's hard to lose. Some kind of magic, baby, we have it. Whatever happens, I will walk with you. Some kind of magic, baby, we have it. Whatever happens, I will walk with you. 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 I will walk with you.
Glenn's least favorite part is when the leaves turn brown. And I can understand that, because I kind of, if I were able to have like way more time, I would have wanted them to like crinkle up and like shrivel like they're really dying. You know how like time lapse videos you see like leaves shriveling and whatnot.
Yes, I do.
All right, there we go.
Slobo,
There
how
we
the hell
go.
do you even how are you supposed to light a scene like this? Well, I will show you.
All right, your screen is totally live, so
Cool.
it's funny that you're doing a global warming video and we're doing an anti-global warming. Whoops.
You're doing, oh, that's right. That's
Whoops.
so messed up.
It is.
It's not
Yeah.
anti. It's just.
It's not
one
anti.
of those like.
It's
We don't really know. you
Tell
know,
it
We
like
don't
it is.
know.
I don't know.
It's whatever.
all the
We
way to
sold
the
our soul for
bank.
it. That's okay.
All the way to the
bank.
All the way to the bank.
Yeah, Raid Zero was in on that too.
You're like, money over morals, bro.
Mhm.
All right, so you guys want me to jump into this mess?
Yeah, dude. bring it.
Absolutely, floor is yours.
Floor is mine. All right, so when I had to make an ice cave for Ice Ice Baby music video, I didn't know what to do. I was thinking like maybe I should show some of the actual references that they came
Yeah,
to me
let's
with.
see some
That would
refs.
probably be a good place
Show
to
me
start.
what you got.
Show me what you got.
got.
I want to see what you got.
I like what you
I
got.
like what you got.
I already know that I like what you got.
This is the treatment they came to me with. So their lyrics, there's a whole story that they that we ended up pretty close to this, though some things took a pretty different turn. Like they wanted Janelle's figure to melt down fully first, and then as a puddle, she was going to go and find the other ice figure in a fetal position, and kind of the fluid would then like kind of conform over top of that, and then they would melt together. And I thought that was like, I thought it was weird to wait to reveal that second figure, and I wanted to kind of play up the love story and create more of an interplay between both characters. So I kind of changed the story to some extent. And at the end, they wanted like a crack to form in the ground, and they also wanted to end on this really sad note, like showing all of this like digital vegetation dying. Like they wanted like flowers to bloom throughout the cave when the two of them melted together.
Mhm.
And then they wanted all those flowers to die, and that was going to be the ending. And like, I thought that would be a really depressing ending. So I tried to convey like their idea, you know, and like show like the flower dying, but then also the two petals still escape. And we've got this like kind of duality. That's a stupid word, but you know what I mean? Like throughout the whole thing, there's like these two characters that are trying to get to each other, you know, and then they melt and they somehow like meet in the afterlife as these like water sculptures, and then they fall back down, and then, you know, flowers bloom from the puddle, and then it's like two flowers, and then the flowers dying, and then there are these petals that somehow like escape the cave and kind of end on an uplifting note. So I definitely changed the story around, and Chelsea helped me a lot with changing that story around too, like she do, because she's the true storyteller. But
Schmoopy teller.
So see this reference here with these kind of man-made, they call it man-made looking structures, but they're kind of smooth ice caves. So this is like this is the thing that kind of made it seem possible, because I don't necessarily like this. Maybe I would be able to do it, but it's so much displacement and kind of bumpy texture, and you know, and like these icicles would have been really hard to build. Like I'm not a good modeler, and I like for
I
this
think you
budget,
give yourself less credit than, you know.
You always say that you don't know how to model.
I don't.
Yeah.
Dude.
I know how to do hack techniques. I was like, okay, what's my hack this time? You know, and so actually that's a good segue into finding the hack. So let me go back here. So
Such a hack.
I'm such a hack. So there's this Beeple video here, called "Cut" with like 3 or 4 T's, and this one I always thought
when I saw this, I was thinking, man,
cool.
he's just ripping off people.
Yeah. Such a Beeple clone.
We're doing Beeple's people today, apparently.
Yeah. What does this mean, you guys? How does it fit
What
into
does
the
it mean?
storyline?
Well, yeah.
Um,
See, there's this ice cave with this ice girl in it.
right. So these formations, I thought, loft NURBS, like how did he do this? You know, so I actually went, and thankfully, you know, we're in contact with Beeple, so I typed to the Beeple, and he told me that it was all X particles and a bunch of cubes. You know, he was just like, I don't know, it's just fucking X particles and fucking cubes.
Right.
So yeah, that was comforting. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So this is kind of the start here. So it's just the Skinner. So
I was
here's the
going to
Skinner.
say, I'm sorry, Matt, by the way, if you could, because I don't have enough bandwidth on these two computers, keep track of questions coming in so we can circle back around.
Oh yeah, Billy's got a question. Do you want me to? I can answer that first.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is more about the pitch or the creative deck. Billy asked like what I found most interesting when I received the deck, and it's not necessarily that I thought it was like the most interesting or the best story or anything, but like when somebody offers to, you know, pay me to do a full CG music video, I kind of jump at that opportunity, because that doesn't come around very often for me yet. And it's just like a chance to kind of go crazy and really push myself and learn a bunch of things. And this had so many different elements that seems like really overwhelming. And like in the past, that's always been really beneficial to me when I get in a bit over my head, though this time it might have been a bit too far over my head, you know. there is a fine line there somewhere, you know, and in this case, you know, the budget wasn't there for this concept, but I went with it
when you
anyway.
told me about like the scope of this project, I was
I
like,
know, it's
how
overwhelming.
the hell?
Yeah. And like originally it was just going to be like 7 weeks, and then it got crunched down to 5 weeks. So I was like, this is never going to happen. It sucked. It sucked for a while, because I felt like I was on this failed project it was just doomed, you know, like there was no way I could finish this, but somehow like they were okay with it slipping to about like 9 weeks total. So yeah, it didn't fail, but it was really close, you know. So that's like really discouraging when you're on a project like that, when you have to keep working even though you feel like you're gonna fail. So it was hard to stay motivated on this one, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the question: how did you light a scene like this?
Oh, that's not. I'll get to that later. The question was Billy asking, like, what?
I know,
about this?
because I thought you skipped the lighting one.
No, yeah, I'll get to that because that's already in here.
Okay.
So But yeah, I guess to summarize, it was just the variety of elements and challenges. Like I hadn't worked with mocap before. I hadn't worked with like characters that much. It seemed like a really different vibe from what I go for usually, you know. And I was kind of curious to see how I would tackle the challenge, you know, because ultimately, like doing 3D, it's just a lot of problem solving, and I know that with enough time, I could get through it. But yeah, there were other things that made it kind of grueling.
Was it worth it?
Ultimately, yeah. I guess if you were to ask me, would I, you know, go back and hit undo? Yeah, I would do it again, because even though it was like I was working around the clock, I didn't have weekends, and the clients were really difficult to deal with at times. I would do it again because I wouldn't say it's the best thing that I've made this year, but like it's provided a ton of content for the reel. It's hopefully like showing again that I can do full CG music videos, which I really do enjoy.
Well, and the learning experience.
Experience. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to do projects like this all the time. You know, because it did burn me out like afterwards, you know. I'm still kind of in that burnout zone.
Jesus asked, you storyboard this at all, or did you mood cut like Somei does?
No storyboards. I did several rounds of style frames, like kind of building the environment, so I can kind of jump in and show.
Yeah.
Let's see. So first, these are like my organization is horrendous when I'm working by myself. So you're gonna see just how bad. So I think the first these were the first style frames. So these were just tests and really weird. Like I was like, ooh, look, a marble shader, you know, and so like this is where it started, which just looks like kind of like trash, you know.
That's not bad. I mean, it's definitely has a look.
It has a look.
Other than that weird eyes one.
Oh yeah, that was just like messing around with. This was just a test, like because the scan actually had this cornea geometry, and so I was like, ooh, I can make a realistic eye. So that was kind of fun. Because the cornea geometry catches the light, which is, you know, it was cool.
The what do you call it? Just the texture in general. Is that something you got off of Polygon? Like, where did that come from?
It is. I'll show you how I built that in a bit.
Cool.
So yeah, these were
we're going to go so much more than we're going to be. This is going to
be long. So this was kind of the initial style frame that they really liked, and then they said, let's go way more vast. You know, I want to see more man-made and vast. And so then I did this, and this was where I got really excited about the project, right? And I added displacement and like fog volumes, and there's some light rays coming in, and to make it more vast, I just scaled down the figure. You know, that's the easy trick.
Way to go, people.
Way to go, people. You know, just it's the same freaking scale, but you just scale down the figure. Though the texture is also smaller, so that and the volume helps sell the scale as well. You know, and so I did these, and then they were like, let's see some different environment. They were like, okay, that's too vast. So let's look and see some different environments as well. They wanted to see more man-made, whatever that meant. So I think they were trying to tell me more regular structures. So I scaled the figure up.
Man-made ice?
Yeah, right. It didn't make sense. But I think what they meant was repetitious. So here's a version of the ice cave that's like more repetitious, you know, and then here's even more like, you know, still cavernous, still large. And I just scaled up the figure to kind of have a happy medium. And then here's an even weirder one, which I don't necessarily love, but it's kind of interesting. So the technique is cool though, and I'll get into that.
That was going to be my next question, but I know you got that covered.
Yeah. And so then they were like, actually, you know what? We really like this one. This is our favorite still. I was like, okay, well, so I tried going in a totally different direction. And at first, I think this was what they really liked, but I thought this was too simplistic. I didn't think it was, you know, sophisticated enough. So I thought, okay, maybe if I add in different colored lights, that they'll start to like it more.
I like that.
You know? And then
guys, is there anywhere that I can actually see this live? Because I'm like 20 or 30 seconds behind.
Maybe Discord.
Are you not on the Discord?
No, I asked you to add me and you didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Okay. No, I can do that for you.
Actually, let me go back one. So I also did this round. This is the one that they liked. And then I was like, okay, I looked at real ice caves, and shout out to Glenn on this because he was like blasting me with a million reference images of real ice caves. But they look more like this with like this subsurface scattering blue, like vibrant blue going on. And so, yeah, this is just some displacement and bump and all your standard stuff. But they didn't like that either. So that's when I went to, the colored ice caves here. And I think we kind of reached a happy medium. And I brought back in a little bit of that subsurface scattering down here. You can see before and after, or maybe here even, it gets like a lot more blue. And I think this is one of these is where we ended up as like a frame that we could all agree upon with some kind of interesting rim lights. So hand placed lights everywhere, different colors, and more of an intimate vibe and darker is kind of what they wanted. And then beyond that, so once we, locked down the environment, it was time to lock down her figure. So there was a company called Scannable that did all the 3D scans of her. And then
was she actually singing when they scanned her?
No. Well, they got, I'm not exactly sure how they did the facial mocap. The scan was just a standard like LiDAR type scan. But the facial mocap was something totally separate. I'm not sure. They had a video that, the animator kind of analyzed and keyframed to essentially, and they created a bunch of blend shapes basically. So they had all these blend shapes for different poses for her face, and then he basically went through and for the first 30 seconds of the song animated straight through, which is insane. Like
that is insane.
And a lot of it got thrown away, which made me feel like pretty guilty when I wasn't using it, but it is what it is. It was kind of an inefficient way to work maybe. But none of us had ever done this kind of thing before. So, but so after,
was she happy with was the artist ultimately happy with everything?
Ultimately she was, yeah. There were a bunch of major speed bumps along the way, like the arm shattering on the word, like on the lyrics, when she says, "I'll break with you," and the arm shatters. She had a major issue with that. She thought it was too on the nose.
Why?
No, I understand what she's getting at.
It depends. Like, maybe you could think that, but a lot of people have come to me and said like, oh, I love the part where, it shows the exact lyric that's happening, and as motion designers, a lot of the time, I think our job is to match visuals to lyrics, so I don't know.
Sage asked, did you get the blend shapes into C4D?
No, I think it was all done in either Motion Builder or Maya, but he exported in FBX, and I can actually jump into this if you guys want real quick.
Yeah, sure.
C4D is somewhere in here. So this is how I label everything. This is what my entire project looks like. It's just like, I like use lyrics rather than like naming things shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4. I feel like that makes it a lot harder to navigate. So I like either call it like arm shatter or fluid legs moving or whatever the hell is going on, or arm breaks off. But a lot of the time it's a lyric. It's like, baby, we have it, or get drunk on you, whatever the lyric is at the time to identify, what I'm looking at. But what I'm actually looking for is Janelle mocap, Janelle Headmaster Anim 01. So here's what I received.
How long is it?
It's 2150 frames.
Oh, that's not a lot.
At 24 frames per second, let's see. 2150 divided by 24 is 89 seconds. That's a lot of animation to do.
Yeah, but okay.
Yeah, no, that's
Did they just cut out all the empty spaces and stuff? Because your video was a lot more than
90 but
90
she's
seconds.
only singing for the first like 30 or 40 seconds, and then she's melted down.
Oh,
Like that was the
right.
thing all along. They wanted to
Okay.
melt it down so we didn't have to do mocap for the whole damn thing.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm stupid. Okay.
No, it's okay. It's okay to be stupid, Matt.
It's okay that you're stupid.
It's okay that you're stupid. But yeah, so this was the thing, and then this is like a video. I don't know if it's linked right now. Now it's not. But this is a texture that just shows her actual performance in there.
Cool.
I don't. Let's see. So this is supposed to be under. Oh, it's under downloads, and this is a totally different computer. So actually, it's probably in the ref folder. I think I'm. No, I don't know where it is.
It's probably still in your downloads.
Maybe, yeah. Assets. Let's see. It might be under assets. Janelle, JK, take, and I give up.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's just a video.
Basically a reference showing what
It's a reference.
she's doing.
Exactly, and they looked like pretty spot on with each other. Now, the issue with this is that these eyes, so like this eyeball here, this is a separate object, which would work great for standard mocap. Like this is what you want,
Right.
You want it modeled out, and it was really cool that I had like the cornea as a separate, thing, and then somewhere in here is actually the iris as well, which was what allowed me to get that detail on some of those that I showed you earlier. But like for ice, I'll show you what that looked like. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here.
It's all right. We still haven't gotten to the lighting thing, but that's all right.
It's okay. Actually, what I'm supposed to be doing is looking at is going through the cave modeling process. But here's what it looked like with the eyes, which is super creepy and uncanny valley.
Yes.
Wow.
So, like you wouldn't expect it, but like you run into all these problems like in the land of uncanny valleys. And
zoom in a little bit closer.
Oops.
If you can.
I can.
Yeah.
Jeez, that is creeptastic.
Super creeptastic. So the one issue is that because the head was separated from the body, and they could not reattach it. That was like some other workflow. Like they couldn't reattach the animated head back onto the scanned body. So it was creating these shading errors, which made her lips really dark. And so that was weird. And then, the teeth show through the ice, through the lips.
That's kind of creepy.
And the eyeballs are separate, and you can see the whole outline of the eyeballs. And these eyeballs look too realistic. Like, ideally, what you want is like a sculptural thing. Like, one of the best references I saw was actually, of course, by Elastic.
That makes sense. Like
I just typed in Elastic Ice.
Ice wouldn't be, yeah.
Vimeo, what else? Skater. I don't know. Somebody can help me find this. Olympics. I think it was Olympics. Well, no, I'll just go to Elastic Vimeo.
Nose man, this is Octane. You can't exclude from transparency.
Yeah.
Not yet.
That would be cool.
Not yet.
So here's Elastic's page. And then somewhere in here, Frozen, Toyota. So this was like an extremely good reference.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
obviously
a great
way
reference.
better than what I can do.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Because they're Elastic,
Yeah, but like, I don't think yours. You're talking
Ours
down
is
on
not-
yourself, but honestly, yours look just as good. Your
yeah,
eyes
I don't
look
see
just
much of
as
a
good.
difference.
I think it's close. It's not. There's some subtleties here in the bump and like a lot of the stuff that they're doing that looks. The shaders look better, and there's all these like fine particles going on and stuff. But I think a lot of it just had to do with the lighting. Like originally, I wanted this more brightly lit, kind of foggy vibe, but they didn't go for that. But here, look at how they handled the eye. So this is all sculpted detail, so you would need someone to go in and like sculpt that into the ice, right?
Yeah.
And that detail on the iris as well. And that's why theirs looks so good, because it's all one piece and there's no like inner detail. It's as if an ice sculptor actually like chiseled that out, I love this part where the tear turns into a snowflake.
Ooh. Why didn't you do that, David?
I'm such
Yeah,
a
why
jerk.
didn't you rip that off?
Gosh, man. Such a noob.
So that's one creepy thing there. And then we'll get into this, but here's the teeth coming through the lips. Like this is much better, obviously, but then we solved it. So I'll get into how we solved it at some point. Let's jump back.
I feel like you're just gonna keep on saying at some point we'll do this.
At some point we'll do this someday. This is what happens every time I get onto a podcast or or whatever with you guys. It's just rat holes for 3 hours. I was like, I was telling Chelsea, I was like, oh no, I'm for sure going to be done by 8. Like,
8?
Yeah, I thought.
Oh yeah, because you guys are too.
Right.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I was
Barton
telling you
Damer
I'd be
in
done
the
by
chat.
9.
What up, Barton Damer?
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh,
He said,
yeah.
Wake up, Milstead. It's because you had that chicken and waffles today.
Oh, dude.
Chicken and waffles.
It was so good. It was the best food I've ever had in my life.
Okay, so
okay.
Ice Cave. So this is just an XP skinner, and it's got somewhere in here the smoothing set absurdly high. So let's set it down to 15. So this is just a cube, and the reason I've got it in a null is because that way it's every time I duplicate something within it, it understands that as part of the list, so I don't have to add it continuously to the source list. It's just seeing everything within that null. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
I guess.
I guess.
What is it that you've got it in?
I've just got it in a null object. See, if I had these individually in the skinner, I would have to go and add each cube that I add in.
You're in an XP skinner. Sorry.
I'm in an XP skinner, yeah.
Skinner!
So the null just lets me not worry about adding each source. It's just the one source that I have to worry about. So I'm going to hide this, so I'm only looking at the smoothed result. And so you can see as I duplicate these cubes, and they've got a fair amount of geometry. If they only had 1 by 1 segment, they wouldn't even show up. So you need some segments for them to show up for it.
Liam was curious why you went with the skinner and not the OpenVDB.
The OpenVDB skinned things too tightly. It wasn't as somehow. This is like more of an abstract.
You want more of like an organic
metaballs kind of deal. So
why not use a metaball?
That's a good question. This is like metaballs on crack. It's like way better.
Dude, yeah.
So this looks too cubic, right? But then when I crank this up to 155, which I had it, then you can start to see where this is going. So rather than duplicating the whole skinner there, let me just.
Is this how Beeple did it too?
It is. So yeah, I forgot to mention that I actually contacted Beeple, and he. No, I did mention that.
You said that. Yeah.
But he told you how to do this.
He just said I use skinner and some cubes. That's it.
Gotcha.
So, but I figured it out from there because it's not that difficult to figure out. So yeah, I can just keep going with this, and I'm just scaling.
What's nice is you can kind of like art direct this.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying when I say I don't know how to model. Like I just find these hacked ways to make landscapes, environments. But this is super easy and zen to make these formations. And if I want something to be smaller, I just scale it down, go back to any of these cubes and thin them down. Or
Jesus says, do the Beeple impression again.
I don't know.
I just got a Skinner.
Learned Skinner yesterday. I'm not doing a very good job right now. Sorry. So if you scale it up too much, like it starts to like kind of tear.
Ooh, neat. That kind of gives a neat look, though.
It's kind of neat. Now, if you don't want that to happen, though, you just add more segments. So I can go 33, 33, and now it'll be smooth. So I'm going to go back though. So say this is our how far we get with this cave. Now to make it super cave-tastic, we just want to add. So I can just take.
Oh yeah, that's pretty now.
Yeah, so this is the underlying geometry. So I can duplicate one of these, and then what I'll do is I'll just stretch it out. So say that this is the cave ceiling, and squash it on down. Oops. This is acting so weird right now with scaling.
Probably our ridiculous amount of video chats and recordings going at once.
Maybe. All right, so if I turn the Skinner back on and then hide my null again, it's not going to show up like we saw earlier until I add more segments. So for this ceiling, you want like way more segments. And now you can see where it's
rad,
going.
dude.
Wow.
So, and then I'll just duplicate. Wow. Now, this gets a lot slower once you start adding the floor and ceiling.
Oh,
Yeah, dude.
so great though.
But that's the whole technique right there. It's super easy. And instead of planes, I just use 2 hemispheres. Or maybe a hemisphere on top and a plane on the bottom, and those get seamlessly welded together as well. So yeah, that's basically the whole thing. Now,
Dope.
You would think that you'd be able to go in here and hit C, but every time I've tried to do this, it crashes. It just spins its wheel and doesn't work. Also another thing.
Can you do current state to object?
Good question.
Or what if you hit C on the cubes first?
Look what you've done, Matt.
Oh no,
you
God
ruined
damn
it.
you ruined it.
You ruined it. Okay, I'm gonna force quit, or
Oh boy.
whatever the PC equivalent is. I still have Mac lingo.
I'm the same way.
You're as cold as ice.
Yeah, I'll just go to the finished version here.
Yeah.
So you're watching some grayscale gorilla tutorials?
I was gonna reference this later. It's a later thing.
That's the X particles thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get to
We'll
it.
get there.
We'll get to it.
I'm not to that chapter yet.
Okay, so real quick, you screwed me up, but
Sorry, dude.
it's okay.
Can't you just open your project?
Yeah, though it takes a lot longer to export that one because it's a big cave.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna make a really hacked version real quick. So pretend that's our cave, right? And
You go into your autosaves?
I don't know. Just that's fine. This is the cave. Just pretend it's a cave.
Don't worry about it, Matt.
All I did was I went export Alembic, and then you just make sure 0 frames, and by that I mean it's just single frame. Hit
Right.
OK.
Right.
And then you can file merge it back in. There's the cave model. So that for some reason works, and whereas hitting C doesn't. So and then I can get rid of the underlying cubes there. So now that's my Skinner, and then I can hit C on this, and now I've got a model that works really well. And then beyond that, I would add that to a subdivision surface to get an even smoother result. But up until you don't want it to be that subdivided because it gets so slow with that smoothing Skinner. And so let's see, the finished one looks like this. And there's some error where I have to toggle this off and on in order for it to show up.
Noseman says the open VDB mesher in particles will produce the same results if you increase the voxel size and add a filter. And I know some of those words.
I know. Well, the filters are really cool. You can get, different. They have like median and mean and all these different interesting filters that work way better for fluid meshes than the Skinner does. So that's good to know. Definitely should play with that because the open VDB mesher is really fast. The one thing that was weird was I think when I was duplicating cubes in that context, it would they would disappear, and it was really hard to work in ArtDirect. So I found this a lot easier, and it didn't take too long. It would take just an hour or two to get this kind of cave, and this is pretty intricate.
Yeah.
Like I can keep flying
Oh
on,
God, dude.
Yeah, so there's like a lot
Crazy
going on here.
Jeez.
I like building out big environments and then exploring inside of them and finding, camera angles where I can shoot.
Yeah.
Things, And yeah, there's that. So without the Skinner, this is what the underlying geometry looks like. And you can see I put
That's
a ton of
cool.
Yeah. And there's just that
so
one hole.
What happens if you just took like a sphere, threw it into a cloner, added a random effector on there, and then threw it into
a Skinner?
A Skinner, yeah.
It would get all blobby and cool, probably. I don't know.
Right.
You can go test it out on your own time.
Fine.
The last thing
I'll make my own ice cave.
Make your own damn ice cave. I've given you the tools. Now you can explore. So I've got the mode set to Zubridson, which is really good for fluids. Or at least, I learned that from a Tim Clapham tutorial once upon a time. I think it's actually better than the fluid mode. I don't know what this will do. It'll probably take a second to update. Oh, there you go. See, beautiful. You guys still there? Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's the whole thing with the ice cave. I'm gonna close this out.
Sweet. How did you light something like that?
I will show you that right now.
Sweet.
It's actually next on the list. Though texturing is first, then lighting, because you have to have nice textures before your lighting matters. Or there's an interplay between them. You know, I'd say that you go back and forth, you know? So I'm going to set this rendering. This is like the ice cave that we all agreed upon, you know? Not as epic as the other one, but still looks cool.
Yeah, Tim's going to be at Seagraph. Be fun.
Oh, sweet. Well, I'm actually going to see him in LA for DMA
really?
LA,
Nice.
which I think Grant's going to that as well, and a bunch of other people. I think it's like the 7th or something.
Oh see, man, look at that.
Yeah, this is what I was playing with around with earlier today, and it looks even cooler than what I did before. But whatever, just delete all this.
Right. Just start over.
Just start over.
Do it live.
Do it live. Okay, and I'll kill daylight as well. Or yeah, sure. Because I want to start over with that too. So saving is specular material, obviously. So I'll pop that in there, and then I'll drop in a daylight. I was messing around.
Which version of Octane are you using?
I was just about to say, I was messing around earlier with 4XB3, but there was like this issue with the lights where I couldn't put an RGB spectrum into the distribution, and I was like, you know, I just decided to revert back to 3.08. It's like
we're waiting for that XB4 for some light exclusions.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
Things are moving slow right now, and I'm moving the cave around by accident.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, here we go. Here I go killing again.
Here I go killing again.
I just love killing.
Just love killing.
Old people, babies.
Kill anyone.
Kill anyone.
Probobulous Michael.
Okay, so this is finally working. So I've got a daylight. I'm just gonna swing it down so that it's kind of a noontime angle, and I'm going to increase the roughness here so that we can kind of see a better result. And then the main
interested to see this
is fake shadows. Fake shadows allows more light to, you know, be transported through the material and all that you guys already know. Now here, I'm not liking how golden this is looking, so I'm going to take down the sun color to something like that, and then also just boost the power, and now it's going to look a lot more brighter.
In your Octane settings for glossy specular, in your Octane settings, like what is your level of, like how far did you go?
The roughness?
No, in your Octane settings, like the glossy specular, all of that.
I leave it at 16 all the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What about? Are you using path tracing or?
Yeah, I'm using path tracing.
Okay.
So this whole video is path tracing with GI clamp at 1, and
Adaptive
on the whole,
sampling.
Adaptive sampling's on at 0.75, and then on the whole, I rendered 1,000 samples, which was usually enough for it to look good.
That's not bad. 1,000 samples?
Yeah, you would think it's not bad, but a lot of the frames were like 30 minutes per frame on 41080 Ti's.
Jeez.
Whoa.
Yeah, the render times on
1,000
this,
samples?
Yes, the render times on this thing were absurd. Like, because it's all specular and everything's refracting within refractions, and like the water on top of the, you know, specular and the motion blur, and like the fluid sims, like some of those fluid sims were like 350 gigs and 20 million polys per frame. So that kind of stuff it was the hardest stuff I've ever had to render. So anyway, the trick to this is like extremely simple. So it's just a roughness map like you do, but then there's one from Polygon here that I'll pull up. Mega assets library.
How much time did this how much total time did it take you to render?
I don't know, because I rendered all like the entire time I went along. I would say like for practically a month or a month and a half straight, I was rendering, and sometimes I would have to revise shots, things that would break. Or like sometimes I would throw away shots entirely. So
Is there
yeah,
a shot that you threw away that you're just like, man, I wish I had used that?
no.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
But what was I saying? But yeah, I mean, it was enough rendering that my electricity bill was $720
Oh man.
Dan Marino was curious why 16. What's the reasoning?
because it's the default.
Oh,
No, I don't know.
No, 16 isn't the default, is it?
It is for path tracing. Yeah.
Oh, for path tracing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was talking to Jay Roth at one of the meetups, and he was like, "Oh wow, I'm surprised that 16 worked well enough for you with all of those different,
Yeah.
nooks and crannies in these things, plus the water." He was like, "I would have pushed it to 32."
Yeah, see, I normally, anytime I have glass or something, I'm almost always above 20.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I got away with 16 basically. So let's see. I want mega assets library, textures, and then I want polygon overlays. And somewhere down here, there's an ice block. Right here are the ice blocks. So this one I used ice blocks block 10 overlay 6K. And so
Nice.
this is looking real weird because of the projection. It's not really following the UVs very well. So I'm going to go to the old
Love
projection.
the blues
mode.
in the background.
Yeah. It's cool because everything from outside comes in. So like if I were to select this daylight and say change the ground color to a blue, that would come through as well. Like I think I can show you this a bit better if I boost this. See how that changes? Because there's a ground underneath that everything outside is showing through the ice.
Right.
I don't think I ever noticed that ground thing. Maybe because it was always set to black.
It's always set to black, yeah. And sometimes I just use, a texture environment instead and mix the sky texture with that. So that's another way that works pretty well. So you can see, you should be able to see the color come through if I do this. Mix sky textures on. Maybe the ground is overriding it. It's weird.
Could it be that one needs to be above the other?
No, it is above the other right now. But maybe it just needs to be set to visible environment. I don't know. There we go.
I don't know.
It was just not updating. But that doesn't look good, so I'm just going to delete that. And then what am I doing? Ground color, texture, projection. Okay, cool. This will update on its own. So we don't want mesh UV because it's stretching everything all crazy. So we want box.
Yeah, set it to box and let it go.
Box. And then we also want UV transform. I wish that Octane's nodes, when you click on them, didn't pop up to some random place. Like I wish they would just go, somewhere that made sense.
Right.
Okay. So that's vaguely looking better. So that's kind of around where I took it. Now I might go in my camera imager and shift the white point a little more neutral or something. Mess around with that a bit. This thing's not updating very well right now.
Yeah. Well, it's understandable.
All the things are happening. All the 1080 Ti's. Okay, well, there we go, finally. So that's a bit more neutral. Now, first thing is I wanted to get rid of the seams. So if we go over here, you can see that there's some issues with seams on this texture. And the easy way to fix that is, of course, triplanar. So just drop in the old triplanar node here, and I'll set the texture projection type to triplanar once it stops freaking out. There we go. And then here you want to set use this single texture box because these are just dependent on, if you think of this as a cube with different sides and different faces, we only want, we want the same thing across the board basically. So here, if I take this blend angle back down to 0 and store render buffer, you can see the seam there.
But you don't see it as badly as you did
It may have
previously.
just saved, I think it saved the 5 blend angle. So let me take it back so you can really see it. It should be identical. I mean, it's there. You can see the seam, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But the second we crank up this blend angle, it just goes away. So that's the old easy fix for that. Now,
gosh, dude, that ice looks so good.
it looks okay.
Okay, never mind. It looks like crap.
It looks like crap. Tell it like it is. No. So the next thing is, so there's subsurface scattering, but there's also, like, if it's really contrasty, you can pop in a gradient right here and kind of mix that down a bit by taking this black point up. So I didn't take this too far because then everything is kind of rough and ice is shiny, you know? So
Shiny.
I did want there, shiny.
Oh my gosh.
So I did want there to be some spots that were more glossy.
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 And this is all just in the roughness, right?
Just the roughness, yeah. And then transmission, if I want things to be a bit more blue, I think I might have pumped a little bit of transmission in there. This is gonna
a little
really,
dabble do ya.
little dabble do ya. So I'm gonna take it less than that.
Pretty.
Now, so that's cool, but subsurface scattering is gonna help a lot more. So let's just go to medium.
I've been waiting to see.
Oh yeah. So that made everything black. So I'll just take this down, and then I think Raphael Rao.
Take down? The
Density, sorry. Yeah,
Destiny.
anytime I'm like moving too fast, just let me know. So I'm going to put a float into both absorption and scattering. And I think Raphael Rao described this the best, that like absorption, if you think of like ink going into water, it's just the color. It's like you can have inky, an inky fluid that's not cloudy. So the scattering is how cloudy it is, how milky.
Yeah.
Whereas, and the light actually getting, diffused and scattered.
Man,
but,
what a great analogy.
right? So as I take this down, it'll get darker.
I always thought it as what color it's absorbing,
Right.
And then what's the other one? Scatter? Or
Yeah.
So absorption, you do absorption, it would still be like, if you're thinking in terms of ink, it would still be a clear liquid.
Right, exactly. It would still be, you'd be able to see through it. Whereas if it had scattering, it would become milky. So as I'm just going to bring the scattering up.
The scattering I always thought about as like how dense, it was.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
It's just the light rays getting bounced around inside the material versus passing straight through. So yeah, you can see if I don't have scattering, then it looks like that. And when I do, it's almost like a fog volume, it adds in this haze that looks really nice. So I'll take this back to 1. And then in the absorption, I actually want to put a color because, that's kind of nice too. That really bright.
On the scattering, you did like a noise? Like, because then you'd get parts, because with some of this ice, you would think that like, some of these parts would be kind of thick and some of the parts would be like super clear.
To a large degree, I feel like that look is created by the roughness, because roughness kind of plays with scattering nicely, where it's like when it's rougher, it feels more scattered. But that's a really good idea, and I'd be interested to check that out for sure. We can do that right now if you want.
Let's try it.
Let's try it. Okay, fine. Noise. Pop it into the scattering.
And I broke your computer.
Yeah, just don't crash my Octane. So I definitely want the contrast to be like way, way up.
Yeah.
And then UV transform and projection. I also want a box projection on this. And then it's hard to know like what the hell's going on here. Like there's this option for solo node. I don't know if you guys know about that.
Yeah.
It would work really well. It would work really well, but not in this context, because if I do that, everything just goes black because we're in this contained environment.
Right.
So I'll disable that. And normally, like I would say, create a diffuse, turn this into a diffuse material, but then that doesn't work either, because then the light doesn't come through. So the best way to check what's actually happening right now is by popping this into the roughness, because we can see the roughness the best.
Oh, cool.
So now we can see what's going on. So I can
Nice,
transform this up, and that's fine. That's enough to test whether this is going to work for the scattering.
Dude, I do that so much. I'll plug something into a diffuse channel first to see before I put it into something else.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't
Matt,
look like it's doing anything.
it doesn't look like it's doing anything. So
is it possible for them to accept anything other than a float texture?
It's accepting the noise. I don't know. It accepts an RGB spectrum, which is what I was using. Though actually for the scattering, I don't need color. I just wanted the color for the RGB spectrum. So here, I think I wanted a little. Things are getting a bit bright. Maybe that's to do with my daylight as well, which is a bit too high powered, maybe. And things also start to get a lot prettier when I start rotating this daylight around. Like immediately, like, oh yeah, that's so much better, right?
There's a lot of cool stuff going on there.
And then maybe now we can take the power down a little bit. But you can see if I go compare store render buffer and take this color away, just take it out the saturation, what's happening? I mean, that's kind of like transmission, honestly. So we need to like tweak the density a bit until we're seeing it just come into it. It's supposed to affect the thicker areas a bit more, if that makes sense.
Did you?
So there we go. That's kind of showing up a bit more, and then I can take the density down to where it's really affecting some of these areas more.
That's nice.
What were you gonna ask, Dave?
Oh, I was just gonna. Well, I don't know if you had anything that bright, but as far as the camera, did you bring your whites down, crush your whites at all? Like, what is it called?
Oh yeah, I mean, your highlight clipping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely
highlight compression.
I have it all the way up already. So this would need to be solved with. I would probably just, if this were this bright, I would like exposure down and gamma up, or just exposure down already is doing a lot, but gamma up will make it a little milkier if it will recognize. There we go.
And it's so, in theory, it's very simple, but it's such a great look. I mean, you don't even have that much. You don't have much in your scene. There's not that much as far as your material.
You're just lighting it with the daylight.
It does so much.
Exactly. So that was definitely cool when all that kind of came together like that. And then I haven't even added in bump, and I didn't. I mean, like, so if you look here at my style frames, that initial look I created here had a displacement, which I liked the look of a lot, but it would have taken forever to render. Like these last couple shots took a really long time to render. But I could have gotten away with it in the bump.
I think it looks really good without, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I'll show you what it looks like with the bump real quick. So if I pop in an image texture here to the bump, and I'm just going to grab these, well, never mind. I'll just, because that's triplanar, so I'll just do the same UV transform here and projection. Set this one to box. So I was actually using, weirdly, my texture that I made for my Space music video worked really well. So if I go to Ariew favorites, it's somewhere down here. It's one of these height fields, planet height field 2. So if I edit this, you'll be able to see what the actual texture looks like. Once it loads, there we go. Hold on. It's loading.
Polygon's the best.
Yeah, dude.
Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Just throw that out there.
I love Polygon.
Sponsored by Polygon.
I wish.
Yeah. So this is the texture that one of the ones that I developed for that planet in my Space music video. And weirdly, this worked super well as an overlay. See how this is adding all this crinkly, interesting looking stuff. And then if I scale it up, we get like a maybe more, it's maybe more subtle. And I can, if I really want to emphasize this, I can take the power up to like 5 and you'll super see it,
Yeah. I like it without.
You like it without? Okay, cool.
I do,
That's what I did for most of the video. So
because I like the smoothness of the ice. You know?
Yeah, that's kind of
they both are a great look. It's just I see what you're saying. Like the smoothness is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is, and it was
easier
to
feels more like the ice has melted and created those areas.
Formations.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was cool anyway. Like coming to that other environment at the end, almost as like the cherry on top. You know, the last two shots looked a lot more. I think they look a lot more sophisticated than this, and a lot more epic and wide. You know, but it's kind of cool to have that journey to this epic place. So I was okay with it.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the
really
texture
awesome.
right there. It's really, really simple. Now, I think now we want to talk about lighting. So,
wait, that wasn't lighting?
Hey, Matt,
no, I mean
here comes the lighting.
What?
That
here
was
comes the lighting.
That was lighting to some extent, but like the daylight, I used it on moments where the cave got super blown out, and the moments where she's melting. But other times I'm keyframing up and down, all those different colored lights. So for that, it's just area lights like you do, and this definitely gives a very different vibe. So I'm going to take the opacity all the way down. I'll scale this down as well. I'm just going to shove this behind some of these columns. So there we go. Now we're starting to see something.
Space.
Nice.
Once it refines. So you can see it reacts really nicely to light coming through, like backlight.
Did you just change the color on it?
Change the color. And another thing that I did a lot was, this is interesting. I don't know if you guys have done this very much, but under details on your lights, you can change the shape.
Yeah.
So say you want a disc.
Yeah. I use disc all the time.
And then you can I was also using spheres a lot because I wanted them to kind of act like omni lights sometimes. So this will actually hit a lot more of the
that's
cave.
Nice. That's nice.
That's kind of interesting too. And then, I did just add in, now the other thing you can do, I don't know if we need to get into that, but you can add a C4D gradient into the light so that if you're seeing hard like lines, it'll fall off nicely. Have you guys ever done that before?
I have not, no. And I'll
show you that real quick.
Does
that's
the
cool.
size of the light affect anything? You know how like the size of the light affects shadow? Does that change anything in here?
Yeah, I mean, if you want, a lot of the time for the rim lights, I would make the lights a lot smaller. And then for my fill light, like say I want a general fill light throughout this cave, I'm going to go I'm going to go options, untick, check camera, and then I'll just pop out of this entire environment and then duplicate this light over and then make it super big and also low powered. So it'll shoot through the entire cave and act as a general fill.
I love general fill.
Right next to Colonel Panic.
Yeah.
Colonel Panic, General Error, Sergeant Pepper.
Sergeant Pepper. Let's see. And then, I don't know, this one could be, let's see what it looks like when it's warm. That's going to look weird. Yeah, let's make it cooler. And
it's going to start melting if you warm it up.
I need some hot ice. Can you make some hot ice?
Icy hot?
But yeah, you get the idea that I had, I mean, I would take it even lower than this just so that you catch a hint of all of the different surfaces in the cave, like something like this as a base, and then light from there. But real quick, Dave, if you're not familiar with this, so I'll just bring this light back in the opacity so you can see.
The gradient thing?
Yeah, the gradient thing. So here in either the texture or distribution, I'll just do a regular C4D gradient because those are easy to control. Yeah. So watch what happens. See that? You see it right there. So if I go in here and change it to circular, and then invert the knots, then you kind of get a softbox feel and crunch it in so that you see the whole circle.
It's pretty good, I guess.
So
it's almost
that
as good as like a Brograph spotlight, right?
Yeah, right. But that can help if you've got like, highlights where you're seeing this hard cutoff and you want, I mean, we're not seeing that now, but sometimes that happens and you want it to look like feathered. So yeah. And then, so here I'll just add in the distribution. Actually, no, I'm just going to overwrite this texture here. I'm going to go RGB spectrum. Sometimes I use Gaussian spectrums, though. Here I was just lazy and I did RGB spectrums. That didn't work. Cool. So I think I had my main colors were kind of this blue. That's maybe too strong. Oops.
Yeah, Billy said the yellow would be like pea ice.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, I just made piss ice.
Yellow snow.
Gross. And then I had this kind of almost reddish magenta-y color. And then my last color was purple, kind of a deeper bluish purple. So I'll just, populate these around. And then when the colors start to blend together, things start to look a lot more interesting.
Yeah, they do.
And then, push one back behind this other column, scale it up. And so that was, I'd say, like the thing I spent the most time on in this entire video was lighting and trying to pull out these different surfaces, and also with the ice figure herself, like that, she was extremely difficult to light in a way that was flattering, because she's made out of ice and it's weird. But yeah, and I also had to keyframe up and down the lights, so I would have different lighting setups that would come on and off. And with the exposure, when you ride the power down, like you keyframe it down, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but it falls off in a really weird way where it kind of like, as it's animating down, it'll suddenly just go away. So you kind of have to give it a really, really big ease, like way more than you would think. So that was kind of another part of it, was just making sure the easing was right.
Linda asked, Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
How did you get the gold tint on the ice?
Sorry, Glenn.
I'm assuming that's just like the. It's all coming from the lights, right?
The lights.
The tint. Yeah. Gosh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, and
dude.
there's a trick to that when you're having issues with the fast the fast numbers falling off like that. If you do a user data with a percentage slider and you pipe that back in a certain way with a range mapper, it will evenly change using the percentage. I should do a tutorial on that. I figured that out.
I understood some of those words.
Well, okay, so let's say
you don't need to explain it to me. I know what a range mapper is. Yeah. Like, I would just need to see a tutorial, or just like
you just drive it with percentage instead, and then like the math does all the work for you.
Oh, that's cool. That's neat. Anyway, so that's the idea for lighting the cave, and then just do that for like 60 shots or however many, 80, I don't know. The other thing is I'm going to turn all those off and back on the daylight. It would have been maybe an interesting look to have a fog volume in there too. So I can just drop in a fog volume. I'm going to bump up the voxels and then scale this thing all the way up so it's covering the whole scene. And then jump into the medium and make sure both of these are, and also take down the density till I can see things. And I'm going to take the scattering phase up as well so that it's kind of more clustered towards the light in the background. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll bring back the density. So earlier you were saying things were really blown out. This could be a good way to soften the look a lot, because this just scatters the light as well. If you think of this as the same kind of subsurface scattering, milky type parameter,
Yeah.
So like, I wanted to do volumes and everything, but it would have taken a lot longer to render, and it was already extremely time intensive. And then the other thing that made me decide to not use volumes, like here real quick, just to show you the difference that it's making. So this is the before and this is the after. it's that in this case it's kind of subtle, but it's softening things a lot. You know, towards the farther background.
Yeah, the background you get like this really foggy stuff. That's nice.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really nice. But the issue is, if I were to do this with the other lighting setup that we just created, all of the lights would be visible in the scene. Because
right.
So that's the reason I decided not to use volumes for most of this videos, because I would have to position the lights off camera, and I wanted the lights to be illuminating the columns. Sometimes I even have the lights inside, you know, the geometry. But yeah, if I let this refine, you would start to see these ghost shapes of the panels. Like if I pull out the old render region here. Yeah, it's actually pretty subtle in this case. Earlier when I was messing around with it, it was a lot more extreme. But these are just artifacts that I would never want in the video, you know?
Right.
Cool. I think we should move on.
Yeah.
We
got like 30 minutes left, right?
No, it's probably going to go longer than that. Sorry, Schmoopy. All right, so this is, I don't know, this might start to get fast, actually. I don't think I have tons to cover. That was the main thing, was just
You're
modeling.
so prepared, David. I love it.
Oh, thanks. I did all this today. So I'll set this a rendering. Now, Travis Davids kindly gave me his Raindrop shader. The one I was using before was, if you search iDanny Raindrop, this is like the one that's like popular and known. So if you look here.
Yes.
It's really nice. My issue with it was that a lot of the drops were really pointy, like especially when I was like looking at the model, like the drops didn't look organic. They have like these pointy ends. So and Travis had just posted his shader on the Octane Facebook, so I contacted him and he was like, "Here's the shader." I'm like, "Oh, dude, you're so awesome."
The new displacement pack he just came out with is pretty sweet too.
Yeah, that thing looks amazing for sure.
I'll be right back, guys.
Cool. Any other questions while this is loading? I guess not. Let's see.
Oh, there's a delay. We'll see.
Yeah.
Man.
So if I look at this model here, I can just right click and select material and go to my node editor. So it's basically the same material with the ice on the characters as the cave. There might be some slight differences. I tweaked the subsurface scattering and stuff like that. But here with the bump, I've got Travis David's animated shader. So, you know, it's just an image sequence. So if I locate this and open this up, you can see what it's doing. And he actually built this based off of, I think he started with Andrew Kramer's Raindrops tutorial and like converted it into something that would work for 3D. So this was great, though there were occasions where I forgot to like make sure that the sequence or the frame range that I was using wasn't looping, and it would hit the end and it would loop and it would ruin my whole shot. So there was this one long shot where it like, I didn't realize, but it had looped. And then I like played it back and it was like after this like 30-hour render, and I was like, I have to do it again.
Oh my gosh, it's looped by default?
I'm saying that that I was lazy and I wasn't paying attention to what my frame range was, because with these, see where it's like starting at 761 and ending at 858, that was due to, you know, this really long mocap sequence, right? And yeah, so it would, I don't know how to explain this very well, but
I know what you're, it would start over, right? You have the mode to loop.
Yeah, I had the mode to loop, but even if it didn't loop, like what would it do? Like go to a black frame? Like the issue is that I didn't set the frame range properly, so it was my own fault.
I got
you know, but it was just like after that I didn't make that mistake again. You know,
and I thought it stopped at the last frame.
No, but that would be bad too. Like I wouldn't want that to happen either. You know, either way, it's really bad. So I think the mode that worked better for me was range, because this gives you extra control So you're not just setting an in and out point and the frame rate. You're also setting the point, the start and stop point in your sequence.
Right. That's what I always use right there.
Yeah. So that's what I should have been using, and I was just lazy and I screwed up. But yeah, so all that's going on is that this texture is loaded into the bump, and that's all of it. It's multiplied down a bit, so it was looking kind of like weird viral, before it was multiplied down. So I think it's at 0.13 strength, so these bumps become way too strong when it's up at 1. So that's the only change that I've really made. And I've got it on triplanar as well, so that because his texture wasn't seamless, it meant that when the drops got close to the edge, they would kind of fade into the next tile. So you wouldn't see those drops disappearing. One weird thing that happened on occasion was like the drops would be like rolling down like up the arm or something in weird orientations, and so some of that, but I got away with it for the most part. You don't usually see that.
Yeah.
And this hair, by the way, Chelsea helped me art direct the crap out of this hair. I never showed you guys, but there were 10 different hair models that we went through, and that was like the most painstaking process. And like Chelsea helped me like take this one hair that was way here, I'll show you real quick. Lighting hair tests. So hairs, there's some different hair.
When you say she helped you,
I'll show you.
She jumped into cinema with you, or she was consulting
she sat over my shoulder and told me which hairs to, like, she art directed it because she knows like beauty, makeup, and hairstyling.
Right.
So like this one looks like an anime chick, but like so there are all these different, these are all the different hair models that that I bought off of Turbo Squid. But at first Janelle wanted this one, and I was just like, you do not understand how bad of a model you have just chosen. So I had to like go and create stills from the side, and I named this one Good, and then I named this one Bad.
Oh man,
so bad. To like so this was the one that I really wanted to use, but it didn't match her hair in real life, and she was really attached to the idea of having long, like kind of flatter hair, like not so styled. So then she wanted to go with this one, which also looked kind of like a terrible mop, and then we tried inflating the bun and all this weirdness, but this is the one that looks good. So Chelsea helped me like art direct it so I used the brush tool and like individually stretched all these downwards until it looked like this, where it's straight. So anyway, that's just an aside. But yeah, so I wanted to show here. So the eyebrows are also in the bump. I got UV textures back from the dude that did the head retopology and the animation, but I didn't need anything but the eyebrows, because all that other detail, like the skin texture and all that stuff, didn't make sense with the ice. But the eyebrows were actually like deforming with the UVs properly, so I just erased everything but the eyebrows in the UV set, so that she had her eyebrows. And so that's like multiplied in there with the bump, or with the raindrop into the bump, so that I kept the eyebrows. So yeah, and then here, this just shows you how. So this is props to Grant, because he saved my ass on this times a million. So check out this head model before it went through Houdini. Someone asked, girl model from Daz 3D. No, this was this girl was scanned, and then someone did painstaking facial motion capture. So this is actually what the singer looks like, though, the ice version of the singer. But yeah, you can see with those separated eyeballs, and the weird like lip shading error and the teeth coming through, like how weird and uncanny valley that looked. And it wasn't fixed. Even like the dude who did this even like tried to stitch it back onto the body and got it to where the polygons were perfectly aligned, though he couldn't actually seam them back together, or else it would break all of the facial rig for some reason. So even when he did that, it still had the same shading errors, and I was like, crap, this is like not acceptable. This doesn't look human. So Grant actually took this whole thing into Houdini, like the animated mesh, and essentially remeshed it. And so if I close this out, for
like
every
retopologize the whole thing.
It's almost like a fluid sim. If you think of like taking this and, you know, everything that's moving on the surface and wrapping a fluid around it or something like that, or filling it up with a fluid. So that's how I've come to think of it. But so that created a single solid mesh, and that's what you see here on the left. But we had to go through a ton of iterations of just that. So here I'll show you, like, and, you know, here's an example where he had gotten really far, but the teeth were still coming through. So then he went and did some magic that I can't explain in Houdini, and now you're just seeing the lip rather than the teeth, you know? And that's just a change in the geometry. It has nothing to do with the shaders at all. And you can see, like, these were the iterations we went through. So here's an early version, and it's like we've lost the darkness on the lip, and things are overall looking like promising, but you can see how much it was flickering at first, because he was like, you know, there's like it's kind of like on the go creating this topology. So he had to do all of this work to reduce the flicker, and then at this point, now it's no longer flickering. Though we started getting these weird errors back behind the teeth, and this is where we got it to. Though here, even though there's no flickering, there's still that, like, the creepy teeth showing through.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we eventually got it to, you know, a place where it looked really good, you know. So yeah, it's crazy. Like, it doesn't look like much in the video, but it's, if you see behind the scenes steps we had to go through to get there, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk really quick about the arm shatter.
Yeah, that's like one of the biggest parts.
Yeah, I mean, the floaty shatter thing. Let's see if I can go to...
You're not using Voronoi fracture, are you?
I am for some.
Are you? Okay.
Both. So on... this is super annoying in my way, but on this shot here... Sorry. After Effects. Get your face out of my face.
After Effects!
So this shot is Nitroblast. And I like Nitroblast because it lets you go and fracture and then subfracture and choose even smaller and smaller pieces to, you know, explode outwards.
Dog, I heard you like fracture.
That's awesome. Did someone say that, or you just said that?
I was just saying that.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, for 0G type explosions and asteroid crap, I like Nitroblast because it's easier to go in and subfracture and create like really fine particles and get much more density. Yep. So these two are Nitroblast, and this one too, until it hits the floor. The one that hits the floor is Voronoi Fracture, because Voronoi Fracture handles dynamics better because it has like glue constraints and like progressive fracturing, to where it's like here you can kind of sense it where you know, the fingers hit first, and then it just feels more physical somehow, you know?
Yeah.
And Voronoi also lets you have like pieces that are displaced and a lot of cool features. I think on the whole, Voronoi is better, but there's still like, I still like the tactile way that you can fracture with Nitroblast.
Did you do like a, in the glue, did you do a fall off in just the place you wanted to shatter? Is that what you're saying with the glue?
I can't remember. I don't think, I may not have used glue. What I would recommend, actually, this is one thing, the one tutorial I forgot to bring up, but Eric, somebody, it's on Cineversity. What's that?
Nothing.
Voronoi.
Eric Cineversity.
Eric Cineversity, that's his name.
Rick Barrett.
Eric Nicholas Smith, fracturing in Cinema 4D. This was actually, this was when we were at
last year at
SIGGRAPH. He did a really, really good tutorial here on shattering this guy's marble head.
Man, we didn't get to talk to him at all.
Yeah, we didn't. But yeah, I recommend this for sure if you want to learn Voronoi Fracture.
Cool.
So,
sweet.
I'm going to have several of those moments where I'm like, I just watched a tutorial, so you guys go watch this too, because there's no new information here. But in After Effects here, the one thing I wanted to point out is that when I have, this is something I've run into several times, where you've got something that's pre-fractured, and because it's ice or glass, you see all the fractures because that's creating internal geometry.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you solve that? How do you handle that?
And yeah, go ahead. I thought you were asking me a question.
No, yeah. What were you going to say?
I mean, what I originally did was I exported to Alembic and then had it like switch from one to the next. I don't know.
So if it switches, like I can do a switch where it's like the unfractured model and then immediately switching into the fractured, but that will make all of the pieces that are fractured suddenly pop on. Ideally you want it to kind of like almost like something cracking along the surface. You want to see that animation, so I've done that manually. Use like
an effector or something for that?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, it could probably be done. I'm sure it's been done by really smart people with like, Houdini knowledge or Espresso. Did you
just use a mask?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's been my solution, and it works really well. Like, so I just do 2 passes, so if I take these off, you can see the first pass is just this unfractured arm, right? And then the second pass here, if I turn these guys on, actually, no, without this, it's just dissolving on. So you can kind of see, ignoring the mask. Let me turn this to, or that's not the right. Here we go. So this is with it just dissolving on. And that's less interesting, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with the mask, I just try to make it look like it's, unfolding. So it just starts there, it goes,
Yeah.
That's my sound effect for it.
Pretty good sound effect.
So if I play this back, I can't see around my mic here. There we go. I'll just let this loop. Though we all know After Effects can't actually preview things in real time, so
right.
I'll just scrub through it.
We're not expecting much from that area
at
the moment.
But here's another good example, actually. This is something I did for League of Legends at one point. Let me quit out of some software so that things will play back smoothly. This is probably what's causing the issue, actually.
It's still going.
It might have been still going. So yeah, that didn't help. There we go. Okay, so here you can see this is something that I had pre-fractured, So I had one copy that was normal like this, and then you can almost see if I pause it just before. So somewhere around here, this is how it looked. Like this is what it would look like with both the arm and this example. You'd see all the little fractures before it actually gets affected and breaks. So you don't want that. So again, it's just rendering 2 passes and then manually compositing in, like having a mask that kind of unfolds in these like jagged ways to reveal different ice, different cracks. And so that creates this effect. I'll play this back.
Whatever works the quickest,
Yeah. And I mean, it's not the best, but it sells it that it's like, rippling inwards and then you feel the impact.
League of Legends.
All right, so next on the list, so here's some melting previs. So in order to communicate with Grant, first off, I did a little frame burn in Premiere, and that starts on the actual frame that the animation starts for the C4D project file I got, because the C4D project file didn't start at the exact beginning of the song. Because he wasn't animating from the beginning of the song. So it started, some number of frames in. So I synced all that up, and then I burned in some frames here so that for every shot, like this singing shot, whatever it was, like it would just be a static figure, because it was like when it was in previs quality, it would just be a static figure. But Grant could see what frame range he needed to use from the animation, because he had that C4D animation on his end, and he was remeshing. So he would then send me back alembics of every shot that needed to be remeshed. So that was one way we were able to communicate. The other way we were able to communicate was through, like, here's a previs for the melting sequence, and Grant did all the melting. But I needed to show him.
Is that all in Houdini?
Yeah, all the melting was in Houdini. And so I needed to show him like how far I wanted her to melt and when, the timing. So I just sunk her into the floor, right? So it's like, okay, now I want her to kind of slow down here, and then we see this one sink in, and then, and this is not the composition that I ended up going with, but it's still the same, timing. So yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. And I'll just let this finish. This kind of looked cooler to some degree as a previous thing, almost like Westworld, like the dude at the end, like going into that milk bath. So yeah, that was definitely the hardest sequence in this whole thing, because just like melting in Houdini is pretty hard, and like it was kind of an impossible task because like you want, well, I don't know how to describe this, but like if it's too watery, then the whole simulation gets really jittery, because you want the simulation to like kind of sag and squish down, and if the foundation of that, like what it's sitting on top of, suddenly becomes liquid and just sloshes away, I mean, Pixar could have figured it out, but like, ultimately our melt kind of looked a little plasticky. It didn't look like ice. Like when ice melts, it actually
I thought it felt more like a slush.
Well, that's good. See, that's what we were aiming for. We were aiming for slushy because that's the best we could do. But yeah, I mean, when ice actually melts, it erodes. It like kind of gets skinnier and skinnier, and that would have been a super unattractive look for someone that's singing. Like she just becomes like anorexic looking and like just wastes away. Like that would have been weird as hell. So yeah, this at first I thought maybe I was going to do the melt. And this was a test in Realflow standalone. There's actually a script. Good. I guess. I don't know. Like the issue was, there are several issues. It looks blobby.
Yeah.
This took a long time to sim. This was in Realflow standalone, and it was using this script that basically erodes it like it's melting, but it wasn't controllable. Like I couldn't control it at all. And also, when I did it with a figure, you lose all the detail. Like this is a full 3D scan, and it has tons of detail, and you lose all that detail. And the other thing is, it just starts. It doesn't.
You don't get to choose where, right?
You don't get to choose where, and it's not affected by gravity. Like if it loses its own leg, it doesn't start to fall over. So it's hovering parts.
Right.
So like this kind of thing is just not doable unless through Houdini. So
you can't do the scripts in the Cinema 4D version of Realflow.
You can't. No, that's what I'm saying. Standalone. Yeah. That's the one thing you can't do, which is frustrating.
Version 3 will have that.
Maybe. So yeah, this was definitely a Grant task, and I'll just show you these because they're kind of funny. Like how far we came. Like I think he did
totally lost a boob.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy how awkward these things can look. So this one's sloshier.
Whoa,
but then it like sags. Cool. It was pretty cool, but then it like sags over in this awkward position, and you can't really control that. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be shooting her like in this weird position. This one, and like it got. Look at how this is from the front.
Whoa.
It like really
Chestbuster or something.
Yeah. So this is like gross looking. And we also had the thought to like have like this glowing heart, but we kind of ditched that. So Grant actually has this heart getting revealed, which is kind of
melted all over the world.
Well, like, kind of connecting the two hearts or something. We were thinking of having like little glowing lights inside their bodies, like their hearts are connected. But we ended up not going with that. And then, so this one, like this was getting closer. And then we had these like flicker frames where it would just disappear for no damn reason.
Awesome.
And also like this just makes her whole pelvis look like get pretty awkward easily. And it was not super controllable, but this is around where we ended up. Though you can see here with the slushier version, the polygons get pretty weird. Like down there, that looks really digital. Do you see what I'm saying?
Like where at?
Here, this whole thing.
Yeah.
Looks like some weird triangle that's suddenly popping up.
Yeah.
Rather than like fluid. So this is where we ended up. Grant rendered this in Arnold. So this was just the first. first melt, but this took like some, I don't know how many revisions, like this was version 17 or something like that. Yeah. And then with the fetal position figure, this was easier for sure, but then like his first sim got like this one puffed up.
Oh, weird.
Baby got back.
Yeah. But this is where it ended up. This one looks really good. But like you can see how painstaking and like how easily things can go wrong. And you're just like, with Sims, you're just beating your head against the wall until it looks right, you know?
We'll try something else and wait an hour.
And then he managed, like, it's amazing that he managed to figure out how to get her singing and melting at the same time. This is something I never could have done in C4D or Realflow, you know? And like here, this is weird too. Like she falls over and then she gets all stretchy necked.
Whoa,
that's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
Stretch Armstrong.
And so this was the full kind of timing that Grant sent to me. So I don't know if you guys can hear this.
No,
is that audio coming through? No.
No.
Okay, it doesn't.
I don't know. It might be going to the live stream. I've never used this Discord thing before, so
the point is he's matching my previs with his melting. So I'll start this over so you can see, like, this is my shot where she's just sinking into the floor, and he's like, okay, this is what's happening, you know, so that when I get his sequences back, his alembic back, I can look at his frames and know which ones to put in there, right? So that she needs to come back in and remain synced. So there was this sync issue the whole time as well that we had to kind of keep an eye out for.
Man.
So, and here he's like showing both simulations at once because both characters in the shot, and which parts, you know, he wants me to use. And he would just send me these chunks because if he were to send me the...
Did you use that part? That shot?
Which one?
Sinking in that one right there?
Yeah, though I backed the camera way up because for a while, this one was extremely, extremely flickery, and it was just... didn't hold up. Yeah, I think you're right. It does kind of look better close up. Though I'll show it to you in context. This is the oops. So it's this one here, and it does look a little weird, but it's, you know, the previous framing was like here. So I still think it works. Now, the thing about the melting, here I was able to include roughness maps on, like, to get see that texture in the ice. You know, like you can see those little bubbles and extra details. But during the melting sequence, I couldn't do that. It had to be, because it wouldn't follow the UVs. It would just float. The texture would float through the melting, if that makes sense. Like anything, I think even if I chose UV mapping or cubic, it would just like move through. As she was falling down, the texture was moving up through her, or just staying in place in terms of world coordinates. So maybe I did something wrong there, but eventually
try doing a generate UVs.
I didn't. I mean, maybe that would have fixed it. I would be curious.
I don't know.
I know about generate UVW coordinates, but it's like animating and melting, and like I don't know if it's like easy to get a texture to map to this deformed
I have
mesh,
no idea.
You know? So I eventually just gave up and was like, it looks good enough. It still looks somewhat icy, though I think these shots look a bit more plasticky because of the fact that there's not that additional detail, you know? Yeah. And like a lot of these ones that were closer, you can see there's still like some boiling and flickering, and I had to clean up by hand a lot of the bigger flickers. So
by hand, you mean what?
In After Effects, like removal, like clone tooling them out by hand. A lot of there was a lot of that, and like with raindrops that, you know, went astray or did weird or popped on, because if you remember, Travis David's his raindrop shader was meant to be raindrops, not melting drops. So a lot of the time they would just pop on like a drop hit her, but that didn't make any sense. So I would have to like clone in texture and track it in to make sure, and like fade on that drop.
Fade on. Yeah.
So there was a lot of like little manual work like that.
Man, good.
And then the final. So I was going to play the final sequence, but you guys already basically just saw it, so I think we can move on. But yeah, props again to Grant for, it was just like banging your head against the wall and so much troubleshooting for like weeks and weeks. All right, so let's get into the Realflow stuff, the thing you guys all wanted to see.
Yeah.
So I'll just go to this other camera here. So this is one of the shots with tendrils forming. So I'll pull that up in the video. Here, this one. Mm-hmm. Not this guy. See how these like little tendrils form? I kind of wanted to give the fluid a personality, like each puddle was like reaching out for the other one. And so here I've got a fluid. I think my final resolution was like 10, but I've set it down to 1 so you guys can watch it happen in close to real time. And then the awesome thing about Realflow is that it sims on your GPU. So there's my one. It only unfortunately uses 1 GPU, but there's the 1080 Ti. And what else? I turned off the mesher so that it'll play back faster, but it's just set to medium with some different smoothing and thinning values. And the other thing I like to do is when I'm emitting, there's a mode. So it's circle, but then somewhere in here is a mode that like starts it with this volume. So it's not like continuously emitting particles. It's just emitting like some quantity.
Right.
And I'm not sure. I don't know whether that's in the emitter or the fluid. Let's see, particles.
I think it's the emitter.
Fluid. Yeah, I thought so too, but I wasn't seeing it. Emitter here. Volume, there it is. So it's set to 179. So the further we set this volume, you can see, that's how much particles we're starting out with. So, so there it's just splashing into a puddle. Now, I like to, for starters, here's my collider. I'll just solo this. The geo got wacky over here for whatever reason, but I just grabbed a piece of this same floor and separated it out so that it's not colliding with the entire cave, you know? So that's my collider, and I just hide it from view. But the thing you want to do with any collider in Realflow is give it both a collider tag and a volume tag. So the collider tag, if I display show collision geometry, this gives you an idea of what your actual colliding surface looks like. So this is super
now, I know this is X particles, but that's something that's in that new version. The update of X particles that's supposed to come out is where somehow it figures out that if you have a giant piece of geometry that it doesn't have to collide with all that extra stuff, so you don't have to separate it out.
Cool. Yeah, I just do that by habit. I'm not sure if that makes a huge difference here or not, but maybe I like ran into that where I was like, yeah, let's just use the whole cave as a collider, and then it got really slow. So the cool thing here, though, like I could take the this piece and just like say I want to make sure it's colliding as close to the actual surface of the cave floor as I want. I could just move this down, that's oops, I think I had polygon selected. So that's one way to do it. Like if I scooch this down and go forward a frame, there you can see now it's sunk beneath the floor a little bit. But that's one issue that crops up a lot, is that if you don't have your collision geometry set to the right resolution, a lot of the time it's really puffy. So your fluid will actually be colliding in a surface that's several centimeters or whatever above where you're intending. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if it's set to low, if I set this to low, and I'm not sure if this is going to happen. No, in this case it was fine on low as well. So, but usually I just set the collision geometry detail to high. And then there's also this surface offset feature so that you don't have to go in and manually move your collision geometry. So if I set this back to 0, you should see, oh, now it's way below the surface.
But is the offset, what's the offset based on? The direction of the normals?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, because when I was doing it with the figures later on in the video, it would puff them up or shrink them in. So yeah, it's totally based on the normals. But yeah, so I'll go back to 14 was like a good value to get it kind of just along that area. And then once you've got all that set up, this volume, Realflow volume tag and Realflow collider, and also you need to make sure that the collider is linked to the Realflow scene, because sometimes these things come unlinked and then you're like, why the hell is this not colliding? So I had that issue a lot. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to crank up the friction at first for setting this initial state. So I'll just let this go until it becomes a puddle, because I'm looking to get like a good starting point, right? And I also depressed this geometry almost to collect this fluid like into a puddle a bit more. Though I think I only did that on this one shot because I think the friction solves that as well. So I took the friction up, but now I'll just take it back. And at this point, I can go to my fluid and go to create initial state and make sure to tick use initial state, so that now when I go back to the beginning, it'll be starting from that point. And now I'll hide my collision geometry. And so these little splines you see here, these are all D-splines. So I've got, these are daemons. And I've just created like this vague tree-like structure. And each one of these, if I think bring my filters back, you can see the red rings are just the forces. It's basically just sucking the fluid through. And what causes the branches is just these different splines. Cool?
That's cool.
So that's basically all there is to it with how I did this. And then, when I do the final thing, I'll crank up the resolution a lot higher, and it'll take maybe like 20 or 30 minutes or maybe an hour to sim. But like the sim times are not bad because the GPU just makes it like 10 times faster.
Yeah. Realflow is like super killer for water.
Yeah. And this is going pretty quick. If I turn on the mesher, you'll start to see, that slows things down a lot once it starts actually meshing those particles. There you go. But yeah, that's a pretty decent looking, like for the resolution and for what I just played back right there, like that's pretty thin and not blobby looking. And I think for the final, I cranked this to like 5 or even 10, to get that nicer result.
The one thing, I think I told you this already, that I would have loved is wet maps on your surface.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure that would have been another level.
That would have taken a lot longer. But yeah, I guess Realflow does have an option for wet maps and all that. That would have been cool. So here's the vortex. And that, just to remind you, is this shot here.
Ooh, vortex.
Not this one. This one here, where they collide. Now this one was the 350 gigabyte, 20 million polygons per frame sim.
Oh.
Yeah.
350 gigabyte sim?
Yes, it was massive.
So basically you needed an entire hard drive just for that sim?
Yeah.
How did you even handle that? Like, did you just plug in
No, I mean,
did you have like a ton of room on your?
Yeah, I simmed it on my D drive, I think. So like right now I've got a cache drive, but my D drive here is like 8 terabytes.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I mean, I thought that I had broken Octane, and I had to switch up to Octane 4 just to even see if it would load, because in 3.08 it was taking like 20 minutes and never even loading. So like I switched to 4 and it loaded in like, I don't know, 10 seconds or something.
Really? So I can't wait.
I was like, all right, cool. It works. And then I think I ended up rendering it in 4 as well. But yeah,
I was going to say, how did you even render it then? If it didn't, you just ended up using 4?
Yeah, I used 4 to render it.
Standalone? Obviously.
No, wait. The plugin was out, I think, at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what was I going to say? Like, it just, these shots, like, especially this one was the worst. Not this one. This one took like, I don't know, 30 minutes per frame on 4 1080 Ti's because of all that motion blur. Like, again, I'm super anal and I needed to have motion blur, baked in for all this stuff. And I think that's just
throw some RSMB on there.
Yeah, stock RSMB. But yeah, I mean, this was a case where I accidentally cranked it way, way too high, like the resolution, but it still held up, and only, it only took like a few hours to sim. And then I had this crazy sim once I was done, and I was like, well, it looks cool, let's see if I can use it.
Right.
But so for this demo, I've, taken the resolution way down. I think it's like 0.1, whereas I had it at like 10 or something like that.
Chelsea said that shot made our house like 5 million degrees for days.
So funny.
That's where your electric bill was,
right? Chelsea's in the chat. That's awesome. Yeah, that's what took the electric bill for sure. So here's like this collision surface again. Same deal. Like if I unhide this, there's the collision surface, but it's just it's the one fluid but two emitters, and they're just there's an attractor in the center that's pulling them. Even so, gravity's doing some work, but the move on in towards the center and collide with each other. Here's, if you go to your fluid, there's a display feature, and see how it's like you can't really see it very well. If you take the max range down, you can start to see the fluid a little bit better. So actually, I might even take this down further so that we don't have to wait for it. So let's go to our fluid here, and under the resolution, let's go 0.004 or something. I don't know if that's too far down. Yeah, that's too much. Let's try 0.01. This should give us somewhat of an idea. But in this center here, there's this vortex demon, and that's what's doing. It's really simple. That's what's creating the vortex. Though the resolution's not high enough for them to even get to the center.
No.
So no. Okay, let's try this again. But yeah, it's like not a very complex setup at all. And I don't know what else to say about it. Like this stuff it looks really cool, but it's actually super simple to set up. And if you want, we can sit here and wait for them to collide.
Nah, we're good.
Okay, cool.
Just I trust you.
Trust me. You trust me that that's what it looked like.
Yeah, we saw it.
We saw it. Okay, cool. What's next? Okay, fluid body. Okay, here we go. So this was where I'm going to pull up this hilarious weirdness. So I wanted the fluids to meet, once they met in the middle and did that whole vortex thing. I'll pull up this segment. They start forming. This is my favorite shot, I think. They start forming these bodies. And so I went to Daz because I didn't know how else to get figures posed like this, especially two female figures, because the singer's a lesbian, and so that was an extra challenge. Like most of the, like if you like search for couples online, like turbo suede couples, you're gonna find a guy and a girl.
Woman. Right.
Yeah. So but Daz came through for me. This is what I found. It's called The Art of Hugging.
Oh. Like anytime anyone mentions Daz, it's just everything is so borderline sexual.
Yeah, totally. But the thing that convinced me this was the right pack was this still that showed the actual poses, and it's like, oh, okay, they could be posed like this could be sweet, or they could do the Titanic.
Nice.
So, but this was the one I went for, and Chelsea helped me, like she always does, select the most appropriate one, because this one like kind of evokes that same feeling that the fetal position one did, where she's kind of scrunched up and the other one's kind of protecting her or something like that. So that's the one I went for, and it was as simple as like, just once you've got the Genesis 3 figure, you just click and then they pop into that pose, and you export an FBX, and now I've got my figures. So I'll take the X-ray off of this on these real quick, so you can actually see. So there's my geo, and actually right now I've got a cloth surface on them, so that's how they actually look. Now, this was another part that was just surprisingly easy. I'm just going to show you. I'll take this back to. I'll put X-ray back on these so you can actually see. I've got these pieces of geo that are emitting the particles at the feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just play it back, actually. Look at how fast this goes.
Dang.
No problem whatsoever.
Why? So why though? Like, why is it?
Why is it so fast?
What's the explanation for it being so fast? Is it because the model is? Okay, I thought maybe like the model was a good model. Like, what if it was?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's pretty clean. Like the geometry is really clean. You know. So that might have a lot to do with it, but
yeah.
I mean, it's also not because I'm just filling this person up. It's not. You don't need that high resolution.
Right.
You know, and like the thing that's really selling this is this vortex here. So if I turn off these people, vortex is what's causing all this stuff to kind of it swirls around the body and like causes this almost centripetal or centrifugal, I don't remember science anymore, force that causes it to stick to the sides basically. So it forms more of a sheet, which is really what I was looking for. I wasn't wanting just some standard like body filling up with fluid. That's boring, you know? So yeah, and like I think a lot of this is just like luck. Like I stumbled onto this, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. Like it's almost like, to me it looks like the fluids are like spiraling up and then like come back down almost to form this dress. And I don't even, that was just like a happy accident, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's not much to it. Like when I first did this, I thought that I was going to fill up, like the reason I was creating cloth surfaces was I thought that I could create 2 sets of colliders and basically make a thin sheet that the fluid could like sit between so it would never fill up the center, but it wasn't actually necessary. Yeah, so
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
And I mean, yeah, there's really not much more to say about that. There's no gravity so that it's easily moving upwards, and there's like in this one I guess there's like one attractor there, and I think at some point I had other attractors on, but there's like only one on right now, which is pretty funny. So yeah, I think at one point I had them up, you know, the attractors up at the heads with more force, but it's just the vortex demon and the fact that they're filling up because there's nowhere for the fluid to go. It's pushed upwards. And I don't know why I have the drag on there. Let's see what happens without the drag. I think the drag just slows it down. See how fast it spurts upwards without the drag? Yeah. So that's no good. So the drag just kind of is a way to limit.
What's the drag set to? Super low?
0.1. Yeah, not very high. And then the attractor has a force of 500. And the fluid right now is only at a resolution of 1, though I think the final was at like 11. And the vortex here has rotational strength of 1700, central strength of 800. I don't remember what boundary does or these others. I just like messed around with the values until it looked good.
I don't know. I just put some numbers in there.
I did just put some numbers in there until it looked good. So, and it didn't take long for it to look good. Yeah, so that is basically it for the fluid stuff. Okay, flowers. The main two, like the flowers, honestly, like it was everybody else and their awesome tutorials that helped me do that. So check out Daniel Danielson's tutorial on this growing plant here. So this is the look.
Damn, Daniel.
Fake name.
Damn, Daniel Danielson.
Damn, Danielson. Back at it again with the wet fans.
Back at it again with the flower things.
And then Sakani Solomon. I love this dude.
He's going to be at SIGGRAPH.
Yeah, I'm not going to be there. I'm so sad. So his flowers just kick my flowers ass to the moon and back. But he released a breakdown here on Hold Frame, and it's only for $39, and it's like 2 hours worth of him talking about this project and breaking it down like we're doing right now. But he also shares.
Dude, you're doing it for free.
I'm doing it for free. Yeah, but so I watched this, and that's how I got to where I did with the flowers growing. So there's not much, I'm not going to cover stuff that other people are charging money for. But I'll show you those shots here.
What did you use for those? X particles?
No, if you look through the tutorials, it's just like bend deformers, and you model the leaf, and they just scale on, and it's just sweep NURBs for the vines.
Neat.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do. I lit them in a way that I thought looked cool with this kind of rim light.
Yeah.
The leaves I don't like, especially here. I should have gone. I didn't have enough time, but I wanted to go back and fix these up. They look too perfect, and the flower animation is not as good as Sakan by any means. But this part here, I fixed up the leaves and added a displacement map, and you can see that they look a lot better and more organic. And that's a really simple thing. So if I go to this assets here, I think somewhere in here. I don't actually know where it is, but it's basically looks like a little stupid tree that I painted in Photoshop. Like it just looks like, oh, here it is, leaf disp 01. It looks like that.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference. Okay, so flowers die. This is Glenn's least favorite shot. But the way I did the flowers actually dying, let me load this up. Super simple. Remember Riot Gear, Video Copilot?
Maybe Riot Gear.
Maybe Riot Gear. Maybe. Oh, Billy said, I love the frame the live viewer's been stuck on for like an hour, the one with the creepy eyes. I didn't even notice. All right, so as it's loading, let's see if we can locate this so I can show you guys. So it's just these ink burns,
Yeah.
It's just a simple black to white transition, but you can use these.
Use those all the time.
Use them all the time. You can use these to transition between different materials. So here I've got a blend. I've got a blend material set up, and I'll kind of squeeze this over this way so that we can actually see a bit better. So I'm doing the same kind of thing that I covered in my digital nature tutorial, where I'm mixing between a glossy texture and a diffuse with transmission, so that you get that kind of light coming through the leaves, as well as some little glossy highlights here that I'm pointing to. That looks a little bit more like how nature is for reals. So that's what's going on here. And there's a float texture that's blending between those. I guess it's at half right now, so it's blending equally. But in this third texture, if I remove this amount, so this is where that animated ink burn is sitting. If I remove this and put another float texture in there, you'll see that we can slide between this clean version of the flowers, which should pop up here in a second. Let's try this again. Oh, it's just going to be the one on. It's just going to be this flower because they have different textures. But
so I'm like, and well, Matt's done 3.08 a little bit, but you know, we've been working on this project for so long that we hadn't moved to 3.08 yet. Can you explain the difference between the blend and the mix? Like, what's the difference between using one or the other?
Blend's easier. So blend just gives you can enter as many materials as you want. So it's like this uber mix material. Yeah. So this one's like, just, oops, I broke it.
So instead of having to do like a mix to another mix to another
mix.
Mix.
It's all just exists within one material. So it's really, really useful. Perfect. Yeah. But yeah, you get the idea. Like, this is the mat that is blending between those two materials, so that when it transitions to full white, this becomes this greeny, whatever texture. And I don't know how this green one is built. It's just like some noises and other stuff. Oh, okay, here we go. If I edit this, it's this rust that's then color graded in a way and, you know, put into the bump and the transmission. So that's the greenish material. Though again, here I wish that I had time to like crumple the leaves up and make them look like decaying plant life, you know? But yeah, that's the whole thing there.
Nice.
And then.
Oh, and then.
Okay, flowers die, petals escape.
Escape?
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to turn off coarse.
Oh.
Had to have a crash in there somewhere.
Oh. Need like a running count on the screen.
Yeah. I guess we are. That is 2. You're right. We're at 2.
First one was my fault. Sorry.
That's okay. And now it's doing that thing where you gotta. Oh no, it's not. I thought I was gonna have to go in and like.
Where you have to force quit.
Force quit. Yeah. Okay. So petals escape. And I'm gonna turn off the display or the filter for. Oh, no, it's not doing it. Earlier we were seeing the deformer, which was really distracting. Okay, so this was where I just added a bit of wind to make it look like there was a gust of wind that was taking the petals. So I'll go to that shot here. Okay, so there's the overtaking, dying flowers right there. And then here, there's a little gust of wind that sends these 2 petals off, as well as this animation for this flower dying finishes out here. See, it's not fully complete, and then it kind of finishes out. So a couple things. There's like a bend deformer on the overall flower. So all of it kind of comes together, and you have to make sure that your petals and leaves and all that stuff are in the right hierarchy so that this is affecting everything. So I'm just keyframing this a little bit to do that kind of thing, just sway a little bit. So that's giving it some overall movement. But then each individual leaf, I put the axis at the, this point here so that when it's rotated, it'll do this kind of motion,
Jeez, dude.
Just on the Y. And then at first I was going to manually keyframe that, but then I realized that I had a friend named Vibrate Tag. And but the issue with Vibrate Tags is it would just be going the whole time. And if I popped it on, it looked really weird. So I just keyframe the amplitude up. So if I go to the amplitude here, at first there's no wind, so it's not moving. And then it smoothly comes on to where it is moving, and then at some point animates slowly back off.
Damn, dude, that looks really good.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I just did that with each leaf, and each individual petal as well, I think. So that all the petals are flapping in the wind a little bit too, which sells it.
Did you give them the same?
No,
did you
each
change
has a
any of the
different
randomness,
seed.
like a different seed?
Okay. Yeah. Each one has a different seed.
I wasn't sure. At first, I was going to ask that, but I was like, wait, if you had the same seed, maybe they would move together,
right? As
if the wind were the same. But
no, you don't want that though. You want them to move differently, I think.
And if you want to change them all at once, what do you type? Num or something in there?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the weirdest.
Yeah. So now this one has a seed of 0. This one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So yeah, the different flower petals, I think these are all the different flower petals, so they each have their own vibrate tag. So yeah, I did that made sure that the axis was positioned right on each of the flower petals and each of the leaves and their stems. And then for these hero petals that escaped the death and decay, I think I manually did this. So let me find this petal here. So you can see this one I just manually keyframed the wind, so same kind of deal, but and then on this object up here, This one I think is controlling. Okay, this is the rotation. So if I move these, this is the overall rotation that comes in after they fly off, so that they're just kind of continuously rotating. And then this null up here is the one I think that's controlling position. So you can see I've just got kind of some smooth curves on these. So it's all just hand keyframed, but it was remarkably like forgiving to keyframe these things, and it was surprisingly easy to get them to look like they're being blown in the wind.
Yeah.
Now let's see. So that's that shot. Petals spiraling. Okay, so here, this is like the last shot of the whole thing. See how as they enter, they're kind of spiraling around each other?
Yeah.
It's subtle. It's more obvious, I think, on maybe this shot here, where they kind of like do this little spirally action. That's also really easy to set up. So here, I'll go to this petal. So I've got this series of nulls, and I'll show you why I did that. So this one is, I think, just controlling. This one's controlling some position and rotation. I also added vibrate tags to these as well, so that it's not just my keyframes. There's additional randomness on top. So I'm always trying to add in more randomness, you know? So this is just controlling, I think, the rotation. But at some point, if I come up to this, see this rotate null? There's a null that has these, each of these flowers have their own independent motion and their own independent rotation. But this is the null that's kind of sitting between the two of them, that if I rotate it, it's moving them as a group.
Right.
So it's like animation layers, you know, and then this one up here is, I think, controlling their overall position. So if I look at this, then I've got, this is like sending them upwards, you know. So if I kill these keyframes, then they'll just kind of be dead in the water, but they'll still be rotating around each other. See that? So I like to separate things out like that, and it helps me animate.
It definitely makes it easier.
It makes it easier, and like, yeah, then I don't have to create a path that like looks like a double helix. I'm just creating a single path that's straight with the dude like spinning on its own axis, and then creating a separate null, you know, that exists between these two that is the pivot point that's allowing them to spiral. So that makes it so much easier to animate. And I feel like I'm going to get asked, why do I have this string of nulls? And an easy example is, like, say I've got this cube, right? And I keyframe it here. And then at the end, I scooch it over somewhere and back in Z space, right? So there's my animation, okay? And if I want to drop in a null and have it oriented to the cube so that I can, like, you know, say you want to control this and move it, and your null's like off here somewhere, right? You want it to be at the position of the cube. So you reset PSR, make it a child, reset PSR, or you could use transfer if you're fancy. And then, okay, so now I've got this null at the position of the cube, and I drop in my cube, and I press play, and it jumps somewhere crazy. It's no longer where it's supposed to be, right? And that's dependent on, you know, how far offset this cube is from the origin. Like, this is where we want to control it from, but it's causing issues. So what you do is then you drop in another null that you make sure is at world 0, and then that one, if you drop the cube into that, if you drop the cube into the one that's at world 0, it's not going to alter the position at all. So then you can take that, it's like a null sandwich. You can take that, and now it's not being affected, but you still have this controller where I can mess with, you know, this. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that's why I create those null stacks a lot of the time.
Null sandwich.
Another thing you can do is, I don't know, lots of people don't know about this, but there's this animation mode that if you click it, you can translate the entire curve. Did you guys know about this?
Oh, that's what that is. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's super, super useful. So, and I can rotate it as well. So that's another really good way to control,
It's like when you select multiple keyframes in After Effects.
After Effects, yeah. Exactly.
Okay, that's Q.
All right, so I think I'm not going to show petals flying. That doesn't really add any information. You guys get how the petals worked. Yeah. And the displacement, we already went over that. So I'm just going to show you the compositing for the last shot, and then we'll be done. Because the last shot had some additional love put into it. Let's see. You guys still with me? You alive?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I got some text messages.
It's okay.
Responding.
We're in Texas. It's a little later.
Yeah.
Totally. We're hanging in there.
Cool. We're almost done. So this is the original on this last shot, and you can see I've added in the snow and the God rays as separate passes. So the original has volumetrics in it because otherwise the light would be too harsh, and I'm getting this nice kind of misty look because of the volumetrics already in there, but the position of the light that looked good was not the position that created those strong God rays that I really liked. So what I did was I created a separate pass, and this was thanks to Ryan Talbot. He gave me this idea to render a separate pass of volumetrics, and I just turned all the materials black, and it rendered super, super quick. Whereas
that's normally what we do with Redshift. Like, if
exactly.
we're doing something like that, we'll just do a Redshift one because Redshift renders volumetric so fast.
Right. Well, you can do this with Octane too, and it renders crazy fast. And then you just screen it on top. Yeah, this rendered in like 10 seconds per frame, whereas this main pass was like 20 minutes per frame. So massive difference. And here you can see if I just turn this on, like even though this looks like it's going to be really strong, it's not contributing that much, and it's kind of blowing this out. But so I ended up putting like this weird inverted curve on it that did this, not this, here. See what this is doing? This is like basically bringing all this down, but beefing all this up. So that got me a much nicer look. So, but without it, looks like that. With it, looks like this. So I'm kind of preserving the highlights up here, but maintaining these God rays. And then I've got even another pass right here that's just adding the same one on top. Like I could duplicate this as much as I want to beef up, those rays if I want,
Interesting. Yeah, that's not a curve you would generally see.
No, it's not. I just like messed around with it until I could see the outside that hole again,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's generally what was going on there. And then this, I found that having the snow in the shot, even with specular materials or diffuse white materials, it was looking really dark, like black almost, and not looking like snow for whatever reason. I guess it was competing with all these ice shaders that are already really bright and translucent, so it wasn't coming up unless I used like a black body emission, and then it was just weird. So I just rendered it actually with a black body emission, maybe like the opacity was taken down as well, so you could see through individual particles to others. So that's the snow by itself, and then it's just screened on top. And I think without this curve, it was overly like blue and like too bright, so that helped it come down a bit. So just composited that in as well, very similar to how I did the God rays. And then I think the last thing to mention, this is kind of interesting. If I jump into this,
you keep using that word, last.
Do I? Do I keep saying like this is the last? I promise.
Yeah. It's just funny.
Because I feel like I'm pressed for time or something. But yeah, I'm like, I promise, guys, this is the last thing. So I was getting this weird error, and I didn't notice this until the shot was like a third of the way rendered, and this was like the last shot I had to render, and it was only going to finish under the deadline, so I didn't have time to re-render it. But do you see this issue in the right where it looks like all these weird Fong tag bullshit going on.
Yeah.
But it's only appearing over there. And I found out that this was due to, and excuse that beeping is my battery backup freaking out. So this is due to, there's several modes in displacement, and there's one called smooth normals now. And the smooth normals is actually what fixed it. So if you go to displacement on any material, add displacement, then you get follow geometric normal and follow smooth normal. So I had it on follow geometric, but smooth was what fixed that. Cool. So, but the way I re-rendered it without sacrificing all the time was I used a render region to render it.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't think of doing. Like you can actually just in Octane go to, so in your Octane renderer here, there's this enable render region, and it can pull the last render region you used from the live viewer. So say you select, say you're rendering and you select a box and it's rendering, and then you say get last render region, and then it uses that. And then, so then you're just rendering a box. Now, the interesting thing is that it still said it was going to take 20 minutes per frame, but then it would finish in like 1 or 2 minutes. It doesn't calculate it right.
Right.
But so that fixed that issue, and then I just patched it in.
Did you have any problem with the camera post doing a render region? Because I've had that issue.
In this case, no, because I don't think the bloom was crazy high. And also, I've just got that feather on it, and the camera's not moving too much. So I don't know. It seemed okay. Like, it seems like it matches in this case, like that's the before and after, and it's not really, doesn't seem like it's causing issues. If I take down the feather, we might notice something. Let's see. So I'll take down the feather all the way to 0. Nope. This one lines up pretty well. I mean, see, there's the seam, but you have to get like way in there to see it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what issue you were having, man.
It just, I don't know. It didn't come back together well. It was just, I think I had a lot of bloom going on in that particular shot, and it just, I just ended up re-rendering the whole thing, which sucks because it was a 48-hour render, but
Jesus, it sucks. Yeah. So the displacement on this, that texture I was talking about from my space music video, I love how it gets stretched here and like looks like all these kind of striations in the ice. Like I like that this has a really different look, and like some of this detail here is really cool too. And that's just the only difference is displacement in this, but it makes it take so much longer. Though the very last shot, I didn't have time to do displacement, but just putting it in the bump channel got close enough to keep that similar look. So if I go back here, and that's the wrong thing. Now I'm getting tired.
Me too.
So yeah, here it's actual displacement, and then here this is bump. And if you stare at this really hard, you can see there's some issues with, I think, the normals as well on this column. But yeah, but the bump gets you, I think, close enough that it still feels like the same universe, plus the lighting and the God rays and all that. Cool. I think that's all I've got.
Man. So well done, that was a great run through. You ready to go live or?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know how you figured all that out in such a short amount of time. That's your brain has to be fried.
It's pretty fried. Yeah, I've been doing jack shit for the past 3 weeks.
There's that cooldown period, and it's like the more fried you are, the more recovery time you need. It's like you finish something like that, and your brain literally stops working.
Yep.
And you're like, I can't even think straight anymore.
Yeah. Plus, anytime the clients contacted me, I would basically have an anxiety attack. Shh.
Oh man. Well, man, we appreciate you coming on and doing.
I love
such
that
a
I'm
large
frozen
breakdown
on your Skype.
You are.
I am, but I'm not frozen on Dave's Skype. So like, I'm literally just looking at the screen like a creep right now.
Oh, that's funny.
Getting weird.
It's getting weird. Well, man, we really appreciate the crazy amount of prep you just put into that breakdown. Because
sweet.
Yeah, seriously, man.
Yeah, we hopefully we do more of these.
Now we got to take this on the road.
There we go.
Coming to a city near you.
Yeah. Now I need to actually make an Octane tutorial for Reels over the next few days. Yeah. I've been that's another thing I've been super procrastinating on. But I'm doing a Kit Bash 3D. I've got several ideas, but I think I'm just going to start with Space Colony because that's easy. Because space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And well, we appreciate it. Your website, davidariev.com. No, arievvisuals.com.
Both of them work.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay. So check that out. We're hoping to do more of these. We're going to try and do as much live stuff as we can. The next couple weeks for us, we're getting prepared for SIGGRAPH. I believe that Liam Clisham will be on doing Redshift Live next Thursday.
Awesome.
He's kind of taking a hiatus with vacations and summertime and stuff, but really appreciate you doing this, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, it was.
Cool.
I miss you, and I miss playing Halo.
Yeah.
We got to do that again.
I got a place for a 50-inch TV right on this wall, and I have the Xbox already down there ready to go.
Sweet. I'll bring my Xbox too when I come over.
Yeah, dude. Come visit.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here, man. Get a little bit of rest. We'll see you probably. You're coming to half res, not SIGGRAPH, but you will be at half res, right?
I'll be at half res, yeah.
All right, cool. So if anyone's coming out to half res, come chill with us and, come find us. We'll be around.
Oh, yeah.
And so I guess that wraps it up. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the places, all the stuff and things. We're all over there. If you are new to the channel and you've just checked us out for the first time tonight, we got a lot of stuff going on in different areas. We do these breakdowns, we do live streams, we do the podcasts, obviously is our biggest thing. So check out the podcast if you like this. And David's on the podcast 50% of the time or something like that.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of fun. I think as we keep doing more of this stuff, we're going to get our system working a little bit better and all that. And if you're watching live and you want to go back and watch it again, eventually this will be saved, but we're going to do a whole deal on like a high res version. Like you're going to send me the screen cap. I'll edit it all up nice. And
right. I am doing a screen cap. I forgot about that. I need to save that.
Yeah, so hit stop and save. I'm sure that's a ginormous file.
Yeah.
We'll attempt to upload it in 4K.
Oh, God, it's 2 hours and 53. I don't know if I wasn't recording in 4K, so I don't
okay. Then never mind. Then we won't do that.
Sweet.
But I'm sure it will still be a humongous file. So,
yeah.
We're going to get out of here. Till next time, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
I'm David.
Have a good one.
Later, bros.
Brograph.com, an online resource for learning Cinema 4D, After Effects, and other motion graphics tools specifically catered to help you prevail as a motion graphic designer.
What's up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph motion graphics tutorial.
With tutorials, plugins, and now a podcast with tens of thousands of listeners worldwide.
Yeah, it's a great community to be part of.
We give you professional time-saving tips, industry news, interviews, shortcuts, and lessons that help keep you current in the world of motion design.
Go into HDR Studio, take the render settings, pick the HDR, put in a reflection, and gorgeous.
I love projects that scare me. When our art director comes to us and asks for something that I had never done before, man, it gets me pumped.
Our weekly long-form podcast will give you the latest news, help you in your file management, hardware configuration, and client relations. Learn about the latest render engines, modeling techniques, and workflow integration while staying entertained. Real nice banana.
That's so funny. All right. I'm going to live forever.
Our Brograph Talks are a chance to see the way industry leaders from around the globe are changing the face of motion design.
Sometimes you got to make stuff that you're not going to put on your reel, and I'm not here to judge.
The podcast and talks include people like Beeple, Barton Damer, Nick Campbell, Andrew Kramer, David Ariew, Chad Ashley, Paul Babb, EJ Hassenfrost, Mitch Myers, Chris Schmidt, Jules Urbach, Cornelius Dammer, David Brodeur, Andy Needham, Caitlin Kaju, Zubair Parker, Noseman, Ryan Bean, Casey Hupke, Nick Lyons, Sage, Joey Korenman, Jeremy Cox, Rick Barrett, John Dickinson, Matthias Omatola, Patrick Goski, Brandon Clements, Steve Teeple, Tom Glimpse, Patrick Longstream, Julia Simone, Devin Coe, Al Heck, and even Dead Mouse.
You get that render done. Yeah, you better frame what?
Our Brograph Breakdowns go behind the projects and give you an insight on what it's like to manage and maintain your own personal business or work for a large company. Join us for live sessions, check out our useful plugins, watch time-lapse projects, interact with us, and send us email questions and topic ideas. Or just hit the Rando Render button and do an imaginative daily that'll keep you on your toes.
Take all your dreams and let's do it!
Subscribe today and get automatic updates on the latest tutorials, tricks, tips, and inspiration brought to you by industry professionals Dave Koss and Matt Milstead.
We don't care how you get here, folks. Just get here.
Subscribe now to Brograph Tutorials.
It's pretty good, I guess.